Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going straight into a stack of research that, well, it really forces us to rethink what we know about preventative medicine.
Hmm.
Specifically, we're looking at how a routine, decades-old vaccine might be a powerful tool against one of the most debilitating diseases of our time,
Mm.
dementia.
Right.
Our mission today is to understand a pretty stunning analysis of real-world data from Wales. This research, it was just presented at the CTAD meeting and published in Cell.
It's a big one.
It is. It links the live attenuated herpes zoster vaccine, that's Zostavax, to not just preventing shingles, but, and this is the key, to significantly slowing the severity and even reducing the mortality rate for people already diagnosed.
And it's hard to overstate how important this could be. I mean, dementia is this growing global crisis. It demands just astronomical resources, and, the personal toll is devastating.
Absolutely.
We've been searching for anything, a drug, an intervention, really any mechanism that can genuinely slow the disease down once it starts. The idea that a vaccine we already use might do this is, well, it's potentially revolutionary.
It really is. So we're going to unpack the science and, crucially, the rigorous methodology that makes these results so compelling. Let's start right there with the numbers from this study on patients already living with dementia. What did they find regarding mortality?
The mortality data is really the headline here. The researchers tracked thousands of dementia patients over a 9-year period. And what they found was that the patients who had received the Zostavax vaccine, they experienced a dramatic and truly meaningful reduction in dementia-related deaths.
Okay, so what was that specific decrease?
It was a 29.5 percentage point decrease in dementia-related deaths over that 9-year span.
Wow, 29.5. Think about that for a second. That's almost 1/3.
It's a staggering effect size. If you look at this population of people battling a severe progressive disease, almost a third fewer of those who were vaccinated died during the study period compared to a similar unvaccinated group.
That suggests this isn't just a statistical fluke.
Not at all. It suggests the vaccine is tapping into some mechanism that actually slows the fatal trajectory of the disease.
It just shifts the entire conversation. It goes from this might prevent shingles to this might be fundamentally altering neurodegenerative pathology.
Precisely. And the effect wasn't just at the end stage of the disease. The study also looked at mild cognitive impairment, or MCI.
Right, MCI. For anyone listening, that's that critical phase where symptoms are noticeable, memory loss, maybe difficulty with language, but they aren't severe enough yet to really interfere with daily life.
It's often the direct precursor to a formal dementia diagnosis. And the finding there was really interesting, too.
And what was it?
Zoster vaccination was also tied to a drop of 3.1 percentage points in new MCI cases over that same 9-year period.
So it's hitting both ends of the disease.
That's what the lead researcher, Dr. Pascal Geldsetzer, emphasized. He said the findings suggest the vaccine has a beneficial effect at both ends of the disease course of dementia.
It's not just preventing the initial spark, but it might be applying the brakes once the decline has already started.
A dual benefit like that is incredibly rare.
Okay, but anytime you look at a study comparing people who chose to get a vaccine versus those who didn't, the immediate scientific red flag is selection bias.
Of course.
People who opt for preventative care are generally healthier, wealthier, better access to doctors. That 29.5% reduction might just reflect those differences.
That's absolutely correct. And that is precisely why the methodology they used here is the genuine stroke of genius that makes this entire study so robust.
Right.
Geldsetzer and his colleagues, they basically managed to turn this observational data set into something that looks a lot like a randomized controlled trial, a kind of natural experiment.
Okay, let's unpack that natural experiment. How did they neutralize that huge potential for selection bias using the Welsh data?
They leveraged the incredibly strict, almost arbitrary rules of the UK's Zostavax program rollout.
How so?
When the program began in Wales on September 1st, 2013, eligibility wasn't based on health or choice. It was based purely on your birthday.
Your birthday. Okay, give us the specifics of that cutoff.
The dividing line was September 2, 1933. So if you were born before September 2, 1933, you were legally ineligible for the Zostavax vaccine. For life.
Wow.
But if you were born on or after that date, you were eligible to receive it.
So you could have people who are only separated by, what, 24 hours in age, The person born at 11:59 p.m. on September 1st, and the person born at 12:41 a.m. on September 2nd.
And their eligibility status was completely different.
Okay, I see. So you're comparing two groups of older adults who were virtually identical in every other conceivable way.
Exactly. They grew up in the same era, lived in the same neighborhoods, similar socioeconomic backgrounds, shared similar health behaviors. But for one group, the vaccine was legally accessible, and for the other, it just wasn't.
That is an extremely elegant way to solve the selection bias problem. You're isolating the variable, the vaccine, while controlling for basically everything else.
It truly minimizes the chance that the benefit they saw is just because one group was inherently healthier. If the group born just after the cutoff, who could get the vaccine, showed drastically better outcomes than the group born just before.
Then the only plausible explanation left is the vaccine itself.
That's what gives that 29.5 percentage point drop in mortality such tremendous credibility. It's a huge methodological win.
It really is. Now let's connect this back, because this team has been building this case for a few years, right? This study focused on mortality and progression. What did their prior analysis, the one in Nature, tell us about the initial risk of just developing dementia?
Right. That earlier work used a similar rigorous method, but it focused purely on the preventative side, so lowering the risk of developing dementia in the first place.
And what did it find?
It found that shingles vaccination lowered the risk of a diagnosis by 3.5 percentage points over a 7-year period.
Okay, and when you translate that into relative risk.
That came out to a 20% relative reduction in the chance of getting dementia. It's also interesting in that earlier study, the protective effects seem to be strongest in women. But the core finding is crystal clear. We now have reinforcing evidence that the zoster vaccine seems to protect against both the onset of dementia and, crucially, the progression and fatal outcome of the disease once it's already there.
So Zostavax, the older live attenuated version, is showing strong protection. But, medicine doesn't stand still. We have newer, more powerful shingles vaccines now, like
Okay.
Shingrix.
Mm-hmm.
If the older vaccine is doing this much good, what happens when you turn up the dial on the immune response with this new generation?
That's the exact question researchers are asking, and the data so far is pointing toward an even stronger benefit.
Really?
Yes, a large 2024 study looked at about 200,000 older adults in the U.S., and it specifically compared the live Zostavax to the recombinant subunit vaccine Shingrix.
And the results?
The analysis found that Shingrix was associated with an even larger reduction in overall dementia risk than the older live vaccine.
Okay, so that really suggests that that specific way the vaccine wakes up your body's defenses is key.
It is. And this brings us immediately to the concept of the adjuvant.
Right, the secret ingredient. For our listeners, when we talk about adjuvants, we're talking about components added to a vaccine that aren't the main antigen. They're just there to kick the immune system into a higher gear.
That's a great way to put it.
So why do researchers suspect the adjuvant is the real hero here, and not just the fact that the vaccine prevents, the herpes zoster virus?
It comes down to two things: potency and connectivity. Newer vaccines like Shingrix use a really powerful adjuvant system called AS001. And this isn't just a mild boost. It causes a profound, rapid activation of the innate immune system.
Which is why people often feel more side effects, right? Like fever, muscle aches.
Exactly, compared to the older vaccine. Now, here's the connection that really flips the script. A separate, very large 2024 study looked at the link between dementia and any vaccine using that AS01 adjuvant system. They didn't just look at Shingrix.
So what other vaccine did they look at?
They looked at the new RSV vaccine, Arexvy. This is a vaccine against a completely different pathogen respiratory syncytial virus.
Okay.
And they found that both the zoster vaccine, Shingrix, and the RSV vaccine, Arexvy, which share the AS01 adjuvant, were linked to less dementia incidence.
That is extremely telling. So if two vaccines for two totally unrelated illnesses, shingles and RSV, both show a protective effect against a complex neurological disease like dementia,
Right.
the common denominator can't be preventing those specific viruses. It has to be the mechanism of immune activation from that specific AS01 adjuvant.
Exactly. Researchers are now hypothesizing that this massive temporary systemic immune response, this deliberate immune challenge, is acting as a kind of system reset for the brain's own immune environment.
Wait, I have to stop you there. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, right.
We've always been taught that chronic inflammation and the brain neuroinflammation is the driver of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. If the vaccine is causing a big inflammatory response, how does that lead to less long-term neurodegeneration?
That is the critical question. The theory is that this strong, acute inflammatory signal is actually protective against the chronic, low-grade neuroinflammation.
Okay.
The brain has its own immune cells, called microglia. In dementia, these microglia, they become sluggish and chronically inflamed, they fail to clear out toxic proteins like amyloid, and they just create a detrimental environment.
Hmm.
The speculation is that the powerful systemic immune signal from the ASO1 adjuvant forces the microglia to temporarily shift their state. It's like hitting a refresh button, snapping them out of their chronic, smoldering state and allowing them to return to a more productive plaque-clearing function.
So it's the difference between a controlled wildfire that clears out the underbrush and a slow, smoldering forest fire.
That's a perfect analogy. The adjuvant might be the controlled burn.
That provides a much deeper understanding. It's not about preventing shingles, it's about weaponizing a temporary immune boost to clean up the chronic mess in the brain.
That seems to be where the evidence is pointing.
So, what does this all mean for the listener? Let's bring together the core insights from our deep dive. The Welsh Zostavax study used those incredibly rigorous methods, that birthday cutoff, to powerfully show that even the older shingles vaccine is linked to reduced dementia progression and a nearly 30 percentage point decrease in mortality for people already suffering.
And this is reinforced by later studies that indicate newer adjuvanted vaccines might offer even greater protective effects against the initial onset of the disease. The takeaway is profound. We're seeing converging evidence that immunological strategies, long used to fight infectious disease, hold powerful, unexpected keys to fighting neurodegeneration. It
Suggests that a routine public health strategy vaccination might be a powerful, accessible tool against one of our most feared diseases. But the bigger implication, really, is the role of the immune system in maintaining brain health. This forces us to look beyond the immediate target illness. What other areas of public health, what other neurological conditions might benefit from this kind of immunological exploration? What kind of systemic immune signals could we harness next to promote neuroprotection? That's something for you to mull over as you think about how we can deliberately reset the systems of the body to fight disease.